Om Shanti, and a very good evening to everyone. It's lovely to be with all of you again after, I think, quite a few weeks. I'd been away. I first went to India at the end of January. For about a month, I was there, and then I came back and went to the USA for Women's Conference, and I was gone for just over 2 weeks. So it's been a while that I've been away from my bed, as I put it. But it's been such an interesting time. Of course, India was really for personal refreshment and sustenance and, taking that time for the self. And the retreat that we had for all of us in India was on the topic of soul consciousness and making that a natural way of being and living. And it is so fundamental to our practice, really, that our spiritual journey hinges on that practice tremendously, because the way I see myself reflects to the way I see my world and the way I'm going to respond to my world. So until I create a spiritual awareness of myself, and that is really connecting with myself beyond just the personality, but at the core, the essence who I am, only then can that become a foundation for me in terms of how I relate and connect and respond to things around me. Otherwise, my reactions and responses will always be a reflection of how I see myself. And that's a very important element to always to recognize that how I react to my world is the reflection of how I'm seeing myself. And so always the work is inward. Always, no matter what is happening around, always the work is inward. And I think that's an important aspect to become aware of, but that is also a very humbling awareness to hold, because we realize then the depth of work that we have to do. And when you do that inner work, the fruit of that inner work is stability. And that stability doesn't mean I don't act on things, or I, sort of sit in my little corner and go home and say, oh, I'm fine, and let the world go on its own, which I think we're very tempted to do sometimes. So it's not that kind of a detachment, but it is a detachment in a way that I'm steady internally, and yet I do what's needed in that moment, without the upheavals of emotions, which is so easy to get locked into. So that soul conscious practice is very important. And it relates very much to tonight's theme or topic, because tonight we want to talk about from fear to faith. And I want to just, for those on Zoom, I'm going to put up a little screen for you. And that those who are in the room, I will tell you what it is all about. So when we look at it, there are just get to this screen. Sorry, give me a second. Yeah. They are basically two extremes that we tend to oscillate between. On the one side is that feeling of safety, where I feel calm, connected, in harmony, in flow, happy, enthusiastic. And on the other extreme of the pendulum is where I feel threatened. And I feel threatened, and that threatened is maybe a feeling of isolation, fearful, anxious, unsafe, sad, overwhelmed, frustrated, sensitive. So we tend to oscillate between these two extremes. And both of these extremes are really based on where I'm feeling safe is when I'm ultimately when I feel either in some ways we try to create that safety very often by trying to control our environment. I feel I'll be calm, I'll be okay when everything is according to what I expect it to be. But we know that so often life doesn't happen like that. I can't control my environment totally. And so I may feel calm or happy for a while, but then it's not permanent. It's very shallow. That's because we're trying to create our sense of safety on a level of control. On the other hand, when we're coming from what makes us feel so threatened in a way, or that loss of control, it's really coming from where what is most times that is being threatened um, is really our egos, because this thing that we tend to operate from when we don't have a solid spiritual awareness of ourselves is we tend to oscillate between a superiority complex or an inferiority I. And this superior inferior I, that when the superior I gets what it wants, gets where approval, gets everything that it desires, then there's that feeling of safety, because the ego feels safe. But on the other hand, it's when the ego feels challenged or threatened, then that's where that feeling of threat comes from. And so what we see is that when we're feeling the sense of threat, we have three responses to that threat. We either fight it, okay? So we put on our boxing gloves and we find a mode of attack or defense. We try to put down what we see as the threat, or we flight. So it's either fight, we fight it, we attack, or we flight. Flight means we run away from it, we withdraw from it, we hide away in our shell, we wish for it to disappear. So we either do that, or the third one is that we freeze. And so this is how, in terms of how the body relates to it. So we freeze, meaning that we try to pretend to be dead. And if we pretend to be dead, we hope that it will just go away. Or, sometimes people bury things or push it under the carpet and hoping that it goes away. But nothing really goes away. One always has to deal with things ultimately. So this fight, flight, freeze are all related to the ego. And whether we're operating from a superiority complex or an inferiority complex, that's what happens in a way. And so the opposite of these three responses is faith, I feel, because what does faith mean and where do I draw faith from? And there's three things that I feel are important to build our faith on. And the first one is faith in the self. Now, faith in the self, it has to be based on really exploring the deeper self. I can only learn to begin to have faith in myself when I'm willing to challenge my own egos. And I'm saying egos because sometimes we come from a superiority complex and sometimes we come from an inferiority complex. But I want to just ask in a way, because ego is a small word, but it has big meaning. And so I want to ask if any of you would like to share, what you feel ego means. What's your definition of ego before I continue? Anyone who would like to share, please feel free to unmute. Anyone? Any form of resistance. Ah, lovely. Any form of resistance is the ego. Yes. One of the sisters just shared recently, which is very lovely, was also resistance to resistance. So when I'm facing resistance and when I resist to that, that is also ego. Yeah. But any form of resistance. Someone has said ego is the reaction. Yeah. Wonderful. Body consciousness, feeling sad, frustration, anger, a false self created from past events to protect ourselves. Yeah, a very good definition, right? Yeah. If anyone else has, but it is very much what all of you are sharing in a way. It's this image of myself that I have created. And how this image is like what I put in front of me that I'm presenting to the world. And if that image is approved, or is liked, or appears successful, then that gives me a sense of satisfaction. But when that image is challenged, and it will always be challenged, or there's a resistance to that image, or there's fault finding to that image, or whatever, that which I am presenting as myself and how that is being received, that then begins to create a reaction. So the ego is this image that I present. And however that is being influenced, then that affects me in a way. So the work that we need to do is about sorry, someone is just saying, since the seminar, I would like to ask whether you will be screening it. Yes, the program will be on YouTube at a later time, not immediately now. So the work we need to do is really about unraveling these layers that we have accumulated of this image that we've created of ourselves, and it's an image we create of ourselves that is from childhood. It is an image that we have created of ourselves that we have been conditioned into seeing ourselves as well. So it's not necessarily all self-generated, but it's also a conditioning that we've created of ourselves. So letting go of these layers and beginning to trust that beyond these layers of accumulation, I will find a core self, which is beautiful, which is powerful, which is enlightened, which is light. And I think That's why inner work requires deep trust. Many times we resist the inner work because we resist what we're going to find. Because in that journey, we are going to find elements that make us uncomfortable. You know, I may find the element that I love being the center of attention, and because I love, just receiving all the attention so that I interpret that as love. Um, and I find that, and when I realize that, it makes me realize that how I am so influenced by where I get attention from, that I bend my own inner rules or my own inner principles. So that can create a discomfort feeling in a way. But if I do that, and if I'm willing to challenge that, then as I remove that layer, or as I address that layer, or as I face that layer, I realize that beneath that is that I want to just give joy. Beneath that is that I just want to create harmony. Beneath that is that I want to create connection. So can you see the work of looking at the things that creates the resistance, the work that creates the discomfort? When I have the courage to face that, then I begin to discover more beautiful elements of myself. I begin to discover beneath that elements of what is the inner intention that just found the wrong expression. um, I love this understanding, and that's where faith in the self for me comes from. And the understanding really is that the true self is light. And if I keep that awareness that I am light, then light never has a shadow. A shadow is only created when you put something in front of the light. Okay, so I am light. I don't have a shadow. Shadow is something I've put in front of I, the light. So my work is more about letting go of that which I have put in front of the light. And that's the work that I have to do. So this faith in the self, and as I develop this faith in the self, to know that no matter how many layers I have to work through, there will be light there. And I trust that process of doing that inner work. And I acknowledge for the self that it's not a job that can be done overnight. It's a lifelong journey. But within that lifelong journey, there's a lot of beauty to be experienced and expressed. And when I have that courage, then there will always be help that will come to me in different ways. Help of a space, help of someone that will be able to just offer that little helping hand when I need it, help of an insight that comes to me. So that first faith in the self, it takes courage, but within that courage, there is help that you will always be supported. And the second level of faith that we need to develop and work on, and that's faith in the divine, faith in God, however I understand God to be. And I think this key aspect for me that works as a foundation is that just as I am light, the divine is light, supreme light. And I am a child of the divine. So I have inherited the qualities of the divine. And so this faith in the divine reaffirms my own goodness as well. And faith in the divine, it's also really this thing that when I hold, as I said, that pure intention, I will always be supported. I will always be supported. Sometimes the journey looks rough. The sea waves look rough and that, but there is a saying that goes, the boat of truth will shake, but it will never sink. And that's the whole aspect, that this connection with the divine is that there will always be support, that there will always be that protection of the intellect for the self. And I find that faith, in a way, is something that will always help the soul to find the strength to take the next step. Because I know that I'm not alone in this journey. And in a way, when we talk of hope, because hope is also a powerful energy, because it's like faith gives hope in a way. But hope is not just wishful thinking. I hope it happens, or I wish it happens, but it's based on the understanding of this pure connection between the soul and the divine, and also based on this understanding that when I take my support from the divine, I align myself in performing actions that bring me closer to the divine. So I can't hold hate in my heart and feel the support of the divine. To feel the support of the divine, I have to clean my heart of hate, and that leads me to the third element, and that is faith in the drama of life. And I think sometimes we say, okay, I can have faith in the self, I can have faith in the divine, but the drama of life, that's a big one, right? But let's look at it like this. If I understand the law of karma, and I understand that every action I perform, everything that I do, it brings back a response. So the drama of life is a response of my karma. It's the response of my individual karma and our collective karma as well. And on one level, we can see things that, it seems like this breakdown, and it seems like there's chaos, and it seems like we're in crisis, and that's on one level that we are seeing. But if we hold higher intention, if we act from a place of love, if we hold compassion in our attitude, then we're creating something different. So always to know that there are two energies at play. There's the energy of destruction, breakdown, and there's the energy of creation and renewal. And both these energies work hand in hand. And so that's what we're beginning to see. So faith in this third aspect is very, very important as well. This aspect of just knowing that how, as we have this faith in the drama of life, we then begin to become aware that there's both energies around, and that it's okay, and we will be okay. All I have to do is pay attention to where I'm investing my energy. Am I investing my energy in the breakdown, then that reflects itself as worry, anxiety, anger, etc.? Or am I investing my energy in the creation, which is collaborating, which is connecting, which is being in a state of peace and creating an environment of peace? So these are our choices at this time. And it's a choice, really, at the end of the day, whether I want to let what is happening around me build my world of fear, or do I want to focus my energy on building positivity? And that positivity is not wishful thinking, but it's faith based on a deep understanding of how we are interconnected, and how when we connect with the higher source, that we are influenced by that higher source in creating something new and beautiful and meaningful, not just for myself, but for everyone around me as well. And so it is a choice to be aware of this, and a choice to keep coming back to this understanding again and again, because it's very easy to get influenced by fear. And fear is also quite, I'm looking for the word now. It's quite infectious in a way. It's very easy that one person's fearful, and their energy can create that vibration and atmosphere, and others can get influenced by that. And many times that people react with anger because they are afraid. Anger seems like very strong, but actually anger is weak. It's trying to hide the fear that it's feeling. And so when I begin to see that, that anger, force, aggression, these are all forms of fear. And my calmness is the only thing, and peace is the only thing that can actually deflect that fear. Because the moment I give in to that fear, I'm feeding into that fear. So to maintain that calmness requires something more than just positivity, but it requires a bigger picture of things. And that's where faith is important, that I have to see beyond the surface here and begin to see something bigger and greater, so that I stay above. The analogy I always like using is in science. If you have one wave coming like this and another wave at the same level, when they meet, they amplify things. Okay. But if one wave is here and one wave is above, they bypass each other. And that's the thing. If I'm at the same level of consciousness with breakdown or with fear, then I amplify the fear. But I can only go, sort of deflate the fear is when I rise above it, when I move above it, when I transcend it in that way. And one final aspect that I want to take up here as well, that in order to move above it, I have to have that bigger picture of self, of the divine, and of the drama of life, of understanding karma accurately. But another aspect that is very important, as a reminder here as well, is that, my experience with fear is that you can only overcome fear by facing it. The more you run from it, the bigger it becomes, the more fearful it becomes. So it's like, trying to run from your shadow. And the faster you run, the more it's just there behind you. And if you just stop and turn around, it suddenly disappears. Okay. And that's the whole thing, that the more you face your fear, the more you find that there is actually nothing to fear. I'll share one experience. So it's many years ago. I was driving from Cape Town to Namibia, long drive. So we started early at around 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. And there was a certain patch of the road. So it was quite dark along the west coast that we were driving up that road. And you sort of go down a valley, and it was very misty. It was like foggy. But as you're driving, you can't even see like a few meters in front of you. That's how thick the fog was. But it's not just like fog that's like not clear, but it comes at you like a cloud, and your default reaction is you feel something's coming at you, so you want to, avoid it. That's your default reaction. And it took a lot of, internal like self-control to work against that default reaction, to slow down, of course, and just steadily move through it. And although it came as a fearsome cloud, you just move through it steadily until we passed that valley and went on to the other end. And I always remembered that experience, because that is what fear is about. It comes to you like this big, massive cloud of emotion. And if you run from it, it will keep chasing you. But if you just steady yourself, take one step with another, it's like you walk through that emotion, and you'll find yourself on the other end. And you know that you have this capacity in you, which you would never discover if you ran from it. But to know that we all have this capacity, we all have courage in us. We all can feel the fear, but we all also have the courage to move through the fear. I feel, that at a very instinctive level, the emotion of fear was to help us protect ourselves from danger. Okay, but we have now become so addicted to the emotion because of the kind of influences around us. And so the only way to de-addict ourselves from this, because so much of what we fear is what we fed to fear. It's not real what we have to fear. They say most things that we fear don't actually happen. So we actually fed a lot of fear. And so we just need to recognize and understand that have faith in this deeper picture of things, and know that you have the capacity to see the other side of this fear. So steadily move with faith through that emotion, and you will see the other side as well. So faith plays this important role. And as I said, it's faith in the deeper self, faith in the connection with the divine, and faith in the power of pure karma, the power of working from that place of positivity, of working from that place of pure intention, of working from that place of goodness that is latent in the soul. And that's creating my path, and knowing that I'm investing in creating something when I'm acting from that place rather than reacting from fear. So I would like to leave a little space now for questions or comments before we end off, because I think I've shared quite a bit on this whole aspect. So it would be good to have some feedback from you in terms of what resonated or what you would like to just get more clarity on. So those on Zoom, you're welcome to unmute. And Nuri, if you'd like to ask anything, welcome to.
I'd like to share, in response to what you said,
Yeah.
I think it's so beautiful. I never considered the three aspects of faith in self, faith in God, and faith in drama, and the drama of life. And I think that the last one actually underpins it all, because you can have faith in yourself and go out, and then you have this superiority complex where, you're the greatest, or, inferiority complex. And then there's this idea that, okay, well, God is on the other side, and I have faith in God, and He supports me, and we go through this. And I think that the last element, which is faith in the drama of life, is actually the playing field.
Yes.
In which we get to experience that faith.
Yeah.
In action.
Yeah.
Because it's like we get to see the faith in ourselves and how we experience our external, internally, if we're vibrating in the spaces of fear, or if we're choosing to remain anchored in our faith and rise above.
Yeah.
And holding that faith, which is, God. So that's like, it is such a beautiful, I think it just, that 1, 2, 3 takes it from a really ethereal kind of concept of faith, and really grounds it into this 3D reality of how we experience this world.
Yeah.
With this concept, okay, of having faith. It's not just sitting and going, oh,
Yeah. Right.
So beautiful system.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. It is about grounding that faith into real life situations. And you begin to almost see your depth of faith in terms of how you're responding to things. Sometimes I find it's not even what I'm saying, but what am I holding internally as an emotion? And that kind of deeper checking also makes me aware that how deep is that faith? Because when the faith is there, then the heart is clean, the mind is light, there's clarity and there's lightness, and I can move through in that way. Yeah. Okay, anyone else would like to share or ask a question? Anyone? Lakshmi has put in a comment that feeling great, empowered with faith and hope that everything is going to be all right by the grace of God. And I think, yeah, in a way that in the bigger scheme of things, everything is going to be all right. Yeah, yeah.
I think something like everything is all right, actually.
Yes, yeah.
Everything is already all right. It's not going to be okay, because it is okay, and it's part of the drama of life.
Yeah.
Wow.
So someone's asking, how do you develop this strong faith? I think you have to act on your faith to develop the faith. And that almost sounds like a paradox, but it is, in a way, that if I work on this thing of, as I started off by faith on the self, I have to do that work with the awareness that I will connect with something deeper and more beautiful within me. So when I act on it, then what I discover on the basis of that action deepens the faith. When I trust, I trust that life always will bring benefit to me. There's always some value that I will draw from the experience. Then I would find that as I hold on to that awareness will then allow me to have the experience that deepens the faith. So it's like I have to work with awareness and let that awareness then help me to take the steps necessary so that it ignites the experience that deepens the faith, you know? So it's not just a theory, but it's like I have to act on it to then get the experience, which then deepens the faith. And then someone is saying nothing is permanent. Yes, that's true. And I want to share one experience here, because I was in a silence retreat, and every time I sat for meditation, it was like there was a restless feeling inside of me. And I realized that I was trying to replicate an experience that I had maybe a year or two before that, because it was a very profound experience. And that's when I had this realization that even experience is transient, it's not permanent. And that is a very important lesson, because every moment when I'm present, let it be a new moment. So my faith is what's my seat. And as I sit on that seat of awareness and understanding, I'm open to a new experience. And that new experience then deepens my faith in a way. So my faith is not in the experience itself, but it's on the understanding that actually becomes like my foundation on which I build my experience. Yeah. What is karma and how can its circle be broken? Karma is, very simply put, is how I express my consciousness. So whether I'm expressing my consciousness through my thoughts, through my words, through my attitudes, through my behavior, etc. And however I express my consciousness, there is an impact created. And the impact is created twofold. One, it's created onto my environment and whoever else is in my environment. And the second impact is what's created internally. Whatever I do has an impact on me. And so awareness of the impact of what I am doing helps me to take accountability for what I'm doing. And that accountability then enables me to then become more attentive to how I'm expressing myself. And that's how we begin to, become aware of the cycle of karma. But then also, as I connect with the divine, I experience a higher level of love, a higher level of peace. And that energy then helps me to also break free from this cycle of karma that's created, in a way that I don't keep repeating the behavior, but I am beginning to find a new way of responding. So it's a whole lesson on its own, and maybe we should have one Thursday evening on the subject of karma, but That's just a short response to it. And yes, faith and fear is somehow connected and linked to karma, right? Yes, you're right there. Yeah. Because if my actions are negative, I will be fearful. It builds seeds of fear in me. Therefore, the tyrants of the world are the most fearful people in the world because they've created negative energy around them. So it comes back one way or another. Could you please share your thoughts of uncertainty of what might happen in the future, since this can create fear? Dari Janki, who's today we actually acknowledge it's been 5 years that she's passed on. So it's a very special day for us today with regards to her. And she was the previous administrative head and someone who lived her life very fearlessly. But one thing she always said was that, who has seen tomorrow? And in a way, what she was always reminding us was that make your present powerful, because that's what you have a say in right now. That's where you have a capacity. That's where you have an ability to influence. And then you trust the future. Because if you made your present positive, then the future will take care of itself. The future is always uncertain. It always was, but just to know that, just like the waves of the ocean, it's unpredictable with what force they're going to come. Are they going to come with gentleness, or are they going to come with force? It's going to be one of those tides that come or whatever. In the same way, life flows, and we can't predict the future. All we can do is take care of the present in a powerful way. All we can do is let our energy, our consciousness be in the right framework of mind. All we can do is project the right energy around us, and that will take care of itself then. Then I trust that I've done my best, and the rest should take care of itself in that way. Yeah. Because otherwise, it's very easy to let the unpredictability of the future create fear. But if I'm present and I do what I need to do now, it's like I learn to flow with the unpredictability, rather than try to control it in a way. I was on a webinar earlier, and it was a group of education educationists on the continent, and various NGOs that are related to education. And the question really was around, now that funding has been cut, and instead of there being a reaction to kind of fear around it, the tone of the seminar was very good, because it said, well, it just means we need to find creative ways of becoming more self-sustained. And perhaps we were too dependent on outside funding, and perhaps now it's time to find more creative ways and resources and approaches to become more sustainable. And I think that's what it is, that if I root myself in who I am and what I am all about, and build my own platform of dignity internally, I learn to then flow with what's going to happen around me, rather than resist what's going to happen around me. The uncertainty, instead of resisting the uncertainty, just flow with it and find ways in which you can work through it. Yeah. Okay, so that was the last question. Thank you. I think there's a lot for us to explore and work through, and it's as we experiment and deepen our own faith, collectively we create a different environment for us and for our learning together. And that's all we can do, create that space of learning together. Okay, so thank you everyone, and we'll end off with one little song for meditation. Thanks.